What's up? It's Jake. I am on my way to see a friend of mine play in his new All Originals band. They're called Ezra and the Relatives. Really looking forward to hearing his music. I've always been a fan of his music ever since I first met him back in probably 2008. So yeah, it's about 10 years ago. Around that time I got really into their band, and his guitar player at the time was a friend of mine from college. So we already sort of knew each other, and you know, their drummer at the time was a guy that I used to play in a band with, and he was a great drummer. And so I just really liked going to see their group perform. And because I was a big fan, and because I was a bass player, at some point they needed a bass player, and they offered me the job. They said, hey, we have to play a show in Virginia in a week. Do you want to learn this stuff and come play the show? And I was like a little overwhelmed by the idea of it. It sounded awesome. I was a big fan. I already knew all the songs, in my head, which, that's more than half the battle, knowing arrangements and stuff like that. But, it was overwhelming to think, I have to learn all this stuff within a week, and then we're going to go on the road and play this stuff. So it was a challenge, and it was really fun and exciting, and I played the show, and they said, hey, do you want to be the permanent bass player? And I said, yeah, I do. That's awesome. And that band was called Open Air Museum, and that was, for me, that was the best musical project I've ever been involved with. Everybody in the band was a really good musician. Everybody in the band sort of, was around the same age and around the same experience level, and everybody was sort of on the same page, musically, and we all got along and stuff like that. It was a really interesting time for me in my life too, because it was the first time since I was like 16 that I had been single, which, that was like 99 or something, 98. Maybe I was 16 or so. And after that I dated a couple different people, but almost continuously throughout from the late 90s up to 2007. And toward the end of 2007, me and my longtime girlfriend split up, and I was basically single for about a year, from late 07, like fall of 07 to fall of 08. I was single, and that was the time period that this band happened in. So for me, it was like that was my whole focus. I didn't have custody of my daughter at the time, so I saw her every chance I could. But other than that, my daily life was just working and playing in this band. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have a dog. I didn't have any other obligations other than my daughter. And so I just poured everything I had into this band. We practiced all the time, rehearsed, wrote music. We played as many shows as we could play all over the place. It was a really inspiring time for the band. We were all sort of in our mid to late 20s, and everybody was just energetic, and it was a fun, exciting time, and we were making this music that we were all really proud of, and it was very creative, and it was a great outlet. And when that band kind of fell apart, it felt very much like losing like a significant other that I didn't want to lose. And ever since then, that band has been my white whale. It's been the one that got away. And every time that the guys in that band are involved in another project, I feel that wound open up again, where I'm like, oh, I wish I was doing something with those guys. Since the time that I was in Open Air Museum, I haven't been in a project with any of the people from the band. Ezra, the singer, and Jonathan, who was the guitar player, they have since been involved in a couple of different projects, and I'm constantly, like, when I see them play and stuff, I'm jealous. It hurts because I see them up there, and I know what it felt like to be up there with them, and to feel like that part is gone forever crushes me. You know, it's like looking back on a friend who passed away from something that you feel like you could have prevented, or feeling like a relative that passed away that you should have spent more time with but you didn't. It's always those kinds of feelings. It's that, like, strong sorrow and regret. I try to live my life as much as I can without regrets. Obviously there are things that we would all change if we could, but I try not to spend too much energy and time focusing on the things that I wish weren't the way they are, because you can't change it. All it can do is bring you down. It's defeatist, that kind of thing. I try to pride myself on not being that guy who lets that sort of thing creep into my daily life. I try to stay positive and look to the future, and I try to think of ways that I can make things better right now, as opposed to thinking about things I could have done in the past. But no amount of that positive energy has ever been able to defeat the regret of Open Air Museum falling apart. I feel like that band sort of, I don't know, transcended genres, and it transcended trends and transcended, like, time periods. Like, that music could have been a big thing in the 80s. It could have been a big thing in the 70s. It could have worked in the 90s. Obviously we were making it in the 2000s, and I think it could be just as strong today. The same music we were making then. It was just, for me, my opinion of it. Obviously I'm too close to it to have an objective opinion, but the music was really, really well written. It was well crafted. On most occasions I'd like to think that we performed it well, and I have never had the kind of satisfaction, pride, joy, sense of accomplishment that I've had with that band. Since then I've been in different bands. I've played to bigger crowds. I've played for more money. I've opened for bigger acts. I've played more shows in a short period of time. I've gone on the road more. I've played venues that were like bucket list type venues for me. I've done all of that stuff. I got my first royalty check from something that I did after Open Air Museum, and none of that stuff holds a candle to what I felt and what I personally gained as a human being from being in Open Air Museum. And so when I'm going to this show tonight, and as soon as I found out that there was a new Ezra Originals project, I don't take it personally that I'm not involved or anything like that. It's not like that. But I still think, like, I wonder who's playing bass. I wonder if there will ever be maybe an opening. I wonder if there were any considerations for other bass players when this band was being put together, and I wonder, if I would ever have been in that conversation. Would I ever get another chance? Is there any way that we could work something out where I could be involved? I think of things like that, and maybe it's not the healthiest thing, but every time there is talk of a new thing going on, or Ezra will post something on Instagram of something that he's working on, every single time I see that, my first instinct is just like a hopelessness, like wishing that I was a part of it. And obviously people could say to me, why don't you do your own thing, or why don't you try to create something that's similar if that's what you are going for? And it's not that. I couldn't even tell you for sure that a reunion with Open Air Museum would do for me what it did for me the first time around. Everyone else is in a different place. I'm in a relationship and we have a couple kids, and Ezra has a couple kids, and Rico has a couple kids, and everyone pretty much has a different station in life at this point that I think would basically lend itself to a different dynamic. And so I couldn't say for sure that it would be even in the same realm of the same sort of thing, but it doesn't stop me from fantasizing that it could recapture that. And it doesn't stop me from thinking that even today, even with all of our life changes and all that stuff, it doesn't stop me from thinking that we could still create something great. The whole was greater than the sum of the parts. Everyone in the band had something slightly different to offer, slightly unique, and when all of it was combined, I felt like we had a dynamic that no one else really had at the time, and very few bands I think ever have. And so I think that that band or a version of that band could still work, and the music would still be as viable today as it was 10 years ago. And I'm not living in the past, I'm not trapped in the past, but it does break my heart to think that I had that and it slipped through my fingers, and there's no one else I would rather make music with. There's no one else that I'd rather make music with than those guys. And I don't know that that'll ever change. 10 years later, I'm still having these thoughts, I'm still having this conversation, and it's as strong today as it was in 2009 or 2010. Maybe it'll be like this forever. Maybe I'll be 100 years old looking back at that band I was in 2008. And on one hand, it's a curse, but on the other hand, I am grateful. It's a blessing that I was able to have that experience. Not everyone will ever get even one of those experiences, and I've had that experience, so I shouldn't take it for granted that I've got to live that. I shouldn't take for granted that I know those musicians and that I consider them friends. I shouldn't take for granted that that those guys were a part of my life and have helped shape who I am today. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to take it for granted. I really, really don't. I appreciate everything that they had to offer me, and I hope that they, were able to take away something from me that, that changed them a little bit. Hopefully not for the worse. The point of this is just, if you have a situation where you're really, really happy, where you really feel fulfilled, you feel like a deep satisfaction from the music that you're making, don't take it for granted. I took it for granted. I was still young enough at the time that I felt like, my whole life was ahead of me, and I'll be able to put together another band like this, or another band like this will come along and invite me along for the ride. And I'm not saying that it'll never happen. Maybe someone will call me tomorrow and say, hey, are you free to play bass? And I'll say, yeah, I'll give it a shot. It's hard to say, but the point is, at the time, I took this for granted, and I'm kicking myself for it still. So if you're in a position where you are really, really happy, yes, there's a possibility it could last forever, but the odds of that are so very slim. So make the most of it while you can. Record every moment of it that you can so you can relive it later. Record everything you can, in terms of audio. make demos, make albums, whatever you can make, and you'll cherish it forever. And tell the guys or gals or whoever is in your band, tell them that you appreciate them. Let them know that this is a fantastic group. Let them know that you want things to succeed, and let them know that you care about what is on their minds, and you want to know how things could be better. You want to take a pulse of the band and find out what things might be bothering them that you don't know about, or maybe there's something you do that you could fix, something that you have a tendency to do or say that rubs someone else the wrong way. Things like that could be the difference between keeping a band together or watching it fall apart. So try your best to try to hold it together, but it takes work, just like a relationship does. It's just that instead of one-on-one, you're dealing with 3, 4, 5 people, and you're trying to keep something together where everyone has different lives and different dreams and goals and stuff like that. It's possible that this band would have fallen apart no matter what I did, because maybe everyone had a different idea of what they wanted out of life. It's hard to say, but I can tell you that putting your head in the sand and assuming that everything is fine and that everything will just work out forever, that's not a winning formula. That's not the right outlook, and it's not going to go well for you if that's an assumption that you make. So don't make the mistake I did. Try to show appreciation to your bandmates. Try to work at making everything as good as it can be for each other, and just appreciate the opportunity you have to make music with them, and that way you'll be able to feel less regret if things ever do fall apart, because you'll know that you did everything you could and you made the best of it when you could. Alright? So, as always, stay positive, hang loose.